folks. Thanks for tuning in to a podcast about Catholic things. I'm Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with Danny this week.
I'm the ambassador of nonsense.
Danny wasn't with us last week. Did you hear?
Yeah. Hey, you know, that's I have a funny thing though. This to relate this morning. My wife asked me what I was thinking about.
What do you?
And you know.
Oh yeah.
I said.
Were you thinking about the Hulk?
You know what I was? I'll tell you what I was thinking about. I told her I was thinking about how lucky you and the kids are to have me. And in fact, you know, I even told her about like the various times that the kids have come to me and said, "Boy, Dad, I am so glad that I have you to help me with my homework. When you explain things, it's just so much easier to understand. I don't know why my teacher doesn't explain it that way." Well, you know, that sometimes I don't know quite how to answer that because my kids are for the most part homeschooled, so I am the teacher. So I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, well, they really say that?
Well, you know, actually they have at times when they've not been homeschooled, they have said that to me. But anyway.
My kids don't say those kinds of things to me. They're like, "Dad, I hate you. You're the worst parent in the world."
Okay. To be clear, to be honest, it's not that they come up spontaneously and say that. It's that as I help them with their homework and explain something, they have more this, well, why didn't my teacher explain it that way?
Oh, okay.
And they say it then. So
no, see, my kids don't do that. They say, no, that's not the way the teacher said it. You're doing it wrong, Dad. Like, okay, but I'm telling you what's correct. But that's not what the teacher said. Okay, whatever.
That's funny.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I had to admit to her that I had lied, though, because that's not really what I was thinking about. I was actually engaged in this strange fantasy that I have about these gadgets. I always have fantasies about gadgets.
Gadgets?
I have this fantasy,
really?
Yeah, about a gadget that I could like plug a wire into my head and then replay a memory on TV. So that, you know, when the kid says, "Dad, you promised that we would go see the new Voltron movie this Saturday."
Then you can replay
and
it.
Then I can go replay me saying, "Hey, you know what? It might be cool if we went out and saw a movie sometime together."
I don't have that kind. I do often think, like, Vicky will swear that I'm thinking something sometimes. And I will wish that I could plug something into my head and show her, "No, I wasn't thinking about that," or "I wasn't looking at that woman. This is what I was looking at." Things like that. It just is proof. Yeah. No, I'm not doing anything wrong. Quit accusing me.
No, I just sometimes would like to replay the whole. You know how somebody's memory of a commitment might get a little bit warped over time, and I'd like to be able to refresh that.
Yeah, there's so much to do with perception, though. It's like, okay, Vicky will say to me things like, "So-and-so mentioned this, and he said it was really great." When what really happened is Vicky went to this person and said, "Look at this. Isn't this great?" And the person said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Well, that's not really what happened, but
not quite the same thing.
And I think everybody does that to a degree, but
yeah. That's. I mean, we want to, you know.
You don't want to say
solicit agreement.
All right. So what are we talking about this week?
I don't know. You know, we could talk about voting. The elections are coming up.
Yeah. I
don't know if you have a lot to say or not.
I feel like I have a lot to say, but it's already been said.
Yeah, it's like, well, what, you know, unfortunately, and I know that Catholics as a voting bloc are somewhat diminishing. There aren't as many of us as maybe there once were. Nonetheless, if Catholics would actually vote Catholic, we would be a powerful force to be reckoned. Instead, somehow Catholics have decided to identify as usually when Catholics are not voting Catholic, it's because, and I'm just going to call it here, it's because they're voting Democrat. Somehow Catholics have gotten it into their head that the Democrat Party, as an approach to society, represents something that looks like what Catholics ought to be striving for. Well, it really doesn't at all, but even if it did, once they became the party of abortion, the party of support for homosexual marriage, and all kinds of evil things, Catholics should not be voting for Democrats anymore.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. Okay, and I've heard quite a few other shows going over this, and what I hear a lot about is the 5 non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. And so there's abortion, euthanasia, embryonic stem cell research, and human cloning. To me, that's all one issue. Yeah. There's not separate issues there. That's all pro-life issue. Right. We'll talk about that in a second. But something you said, homosexual marriage, that's the 5th non-negotiable that people talk about. And I would vote the way I would vote, but I don't necessarily know if that's a non-negotiable.
It's not a non-negotiable in the sense that, for example, when you look at an individual candidate, and let's say, for example, you've got a candidate who supports homosexual marriage but is pro-life, versus a candidate who is against homosexual marriage but is let's say, very, not even really wishy-washy on abortion. Not pro-life, not necessarily the sort of modern virulent pro-abortion. Well, okay, I would go with the pro-life candidate. To me, that's the number one issue.
Yeah.
But when I say the Democratic Party, I'm talking about as a party, as part of their platform, as part of their organized decision. This is what we are about as a group of people. They're supporting things that are completely evil. And that's where, as a Catholic, you have to stop saying, wait a minute, that's my party. You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going for. Not that under those circumstances you could never vote for a Democrat, but Catholics should really get out of this mindset of thinking that the Democratic Party is their party.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And
our grandma called herself a Democrat. She never voted Democrat because of the pro-life issue, but she always looked for a reason to vote Democrat.
And you know why?
She couldn't find one, but
I
think it was because of I think you're going way back to unions and stuff, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, Grandpa was big in the unions.
Right. And I think maybe some of the unions are kind of losing their enamourship with the Democratic Party as well.
Yeah, I know, especially with Trump. But the unions still get money from the Democrats and vice versa. And that's why it's probably going to keep going this way for a little while anyway. But, unions tell their people to vote a certain way. And when Trump came along, I think they lost their power to do that because so many blue collars are in love with Trump.
Yeah.
And it's just not working anymore. But, okay, see, here's the thing. I remember when homosexual, quote, marriage was not an issue. Nobody even thought about it. It just, it wasn't something even that came up. And then within a year, all of a sudden they had taken this issue and made it an issue. Right. And I remember I was asked about it way back when, and the reason I really don't care if our society allows gay couples to stay together and to call themselves married. The reason I was against it from the very start was because eventually I believe this will lead to priests being forced to marry a couple of the same sex to perform this ceremony.
Well, and the way that'll eventually go, you're absolutely right. It will go there, and the way it'll end up working out is that by refusing to be willing to do so, the church will lose, state by state, its ability to attain a license to marry people.
Yeah.
And so what will happen is that people, in order to be married, will have to actually have two marriages. They'll have to go to the church to obtain the sacrament, the true marriage, and then they'll have to go to a justice of the peace to get the paper marriage, so that they can benefit, and file taxes jointly and all that kind of stuff, and have rights of survivorship and so forth.
And the thing is,
I really think
that was my only objection to it. I mean, it's not like I believe gay people can be married, or
right.
I don't believe a man can marry a man. But if the state wants to define it that way, whatever. It's not. I just don't think it's as big an issue. I think it's a very small percentage of people, and I don't think it's as big an issue as they've made it. But again, it's what you just mentioned. That's really my only problem with it. I don't care if they have income tax, joint filing rights, and insurance rights and things like that. Which it seems like that's what they brought these things up in order to get the gay marriage issue to be an issue. Yeah,
right.
And
people proposed other ideas. They proposed, well, let's allow them to have all the same legal definition of a relationship as spouses. We'll just call them civil unions or something like that. Mm-hmm. But see, here's the thing where it gets to where you think in terms of the question of, as a pragmatism, which is kind of what we're discussing now, and the question as an evil, a specific, and I'll call it an instrument of Satan, which you got to kind of be careful about how you carry that thought into the voting booth, but that's, I believe, why it would never have been acceptable to just say, oh, okay, we'll call them civil unions and we'll grant the same rights. Because from a diabolical point of view, and I really think there is a diabolical element behind this, the whole point is not to obtain some kind of legal civil right for people of the same sex to be married to each other. Mm-hmm. The point is to destroy and undermine the sacrament of marriage. Well, the state doesn't really have a place in the sacrament of marriage. I mean, it has a place in the sacrament of marriage in the sense that the state is, kind of grants and sort of makes real as a social institution the reality of marriage as, two people bound together, committed to each other, committed to raising their children together, and so on and so forth. Marriage in that sense is a very anthropological thing. I mean, it developed out of a need to make sure that children have a home to be raised in.
Yeah.
But the state's job, the state legislature doesn't really have any business, I would think, discussing, questions about the strategy of Satan and stuff like that. That doesn't really belong on that level. So they can't think of it in those terms. But I think just kind of looking at the bigger picture, that's why the idea of civil unions was never going to be enough anyway. It was going to have to be marriage, and it was going to have to go all the way to that.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one thing to say, okay, well, whether the state does this or not, okay, that's a question. Set that aside. That's a civil question. But in terms of having a loyalty to a party, look at what your party really represents.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the other problem I have with the idea of gay marriage is that it legitimizes everything about marriage that shouldn't be about marriage. What it does is, when you get married, the marriage is about each other and institutionally about your children, but personally and experientially, it should be, you know, a full giving of one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense, and a full giving that can yield children, that is so committed that it's ready to take on the burden of raising children. So what is wrong with marriage in the modern world, we could say, but we can just look at modern America, look at how many marriages end up in divorce, and what is the one reason that marriages end in divorce? Because of selfishness, because people go into marriage for selfish reasons. They go in because they want something, not because they want to give something.
Yeah.
And making, you know, this homosexual marriage a thing legitimizes that. What it says is, hey, the marriage really is about what you get,
not about what you
give. And in that sense, not from a civil law, percolating down through courts kind of sense, but more in a cultural sense, it's going to have a bad effect overall on all marriages. Not the the marriages that are existing, but it's going to have just having that as part of a cultural mindset of kids growing up today. It's going to be one more thing that chips away at the possibility of them coming to a realization of the fulfillment that you get out of a marriage that's based entirely on self-giving.
Right. Well, okay. So that's the gay marriage issue. And again, I think we are coming ever closer, if we don't, we were coming ever closer to a point where it will be said to a priest, you have to marry this gay couple. But I think we've kind of turned the tide here, and we're going back, which there's news of that in the upcoming current events. But now the pro-life issue. See, growing up, let's see, I've been voting for almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time that I started voting, when I was 18, that was kind of the only issue in my head. In my head, I don't understand how anything can go beyond that. I can't understand how someone would think it's okay to kill babies and then even worry about their position on, say, gun control or things of that nature.
Right.
It never made sense to me. And
it doesn't make sense to me either. And I really don't know why it makes sense to other people who call themselves Christian or people who call themselves Catholic. I kind of think of it like, put yourself in the position of, and I know that it didn't happen this way historically, but put yourself in the position of something similar to a sort of up-and-coming Nazi Germany, where, maybe in certain places Jews were already being killed, but there was opportunities to support or not support, political statesmen within Germany who were in favor or not in favor of continuing down that path. Let's say specifically for the Nazi Party itself. To me, the people who say that they're Catholic and that they, personally maybe don't believe that abortion is okay, but they're still going to vote for somebody who does believe it's okay. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, I know that the Nazis want to kill the Jews. Yeah, that's part of their platform, and yeah, that's, it's a bad thing, but, look at what they're doing for old people and how the care of the elderly is part of their program. And look at how, their push for volunteerism and getting young people involved. That's a great thing. We ought to be supporting this stuff, even if a few Jews have to be killed along the way.
Exactly.
To me, that's what it's like to say, hey, I'm Catholic and I'm going to vote for a candidate who's pro-abortion.
That's how it exists in my mind. So then the question comes up every now and then, is it objectively sinful to vote for a pro-abortion candidate? I maintain that it is.
I can't imagine a theory, a moral theology that would stand up to any kind of Christian scrutiny that it isn't a sin to vote for a pro-abortion candidate. Even on a level where abortion may not specifically be an issue. I mean, let's say you're voting for a school board member or something like that, and you think, they don't have any ability to make abortion laws. Well, no, but they do have the ability to hire people who may or may not have a role in influencing other young people to make decisions. For example, they might approve counselors for schools, and some of those guidance counselors, they find out a girl's pregnant, and they pressure her to, don't tell your parents, just go to this place,
Yeah.
You have no idea how that person's view on abortion is going to end up affecting real people and costing them their souls possibly, but certainly costing some people their lives.
Yeah, in my head, there's just no getting around it. It has to be the starting point of your vote. If you're a Catholic, and if you want to, because a lot of people call themselves Catholic, but they don't actually, they might go to church twice a year, and but if you are going to be Catholic, this is one of the. To me, it's the only non-negotiable, but it's definitely a non-negotiable. You have to vote pro-life. Everything in America right now, almost every decision you make should be at least with that in mind, that abortion has to be stopped. And to me, it's every bit as important as it was in Nazi Germany that they had to stop killing Jews. And it's kind of a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer. At one time, it was a no-brainer for some people that we had to stop slavery. In my head, this is a bigger no-brainer.
Right, right.
I can't even comprehend people wanting to get beyond that. But, oh well. Okay, but beyond the pro-life issue,
so
if you have two candidates who claim to be pro-life.
Pro-life, yeah. So what other issues might there be where they might differ on significant things? If it's local, you're talking about, mayor of your city or a city council member, even maybe your governorship or state legislature or something like that. You've got local issues that you'll look at, and beyond the question of pro-life, there may be questions about like how they want to do welfare, or whether they want to, tax a certain kind of thing or something like that. I think if we wanted to spend a podcast on it, I could make a case that from a Catholic point of view, it's better to support the more light-handed, limited government kind of mentality. But it's certainly not one of those, like a non-negotiable thing. And it's one of those that's going to be, when you're at the local politics level, there's going to be a lot that influences that in terms of things that are going on locally. I don't think that we can speak to in general terms.
Right.
But at a national level, I think the other big one that people like to talk about, that even the Catholic bishops want to always get involved in, is immigration.
Immigration. Okay, so I don't know if this is one of those times where you can take your Catholic, I don't want to say Catholic viewpoint,
Catholic principles,
or more than anything, your Catholic lifestyle.
Okay.
And apply it to not just politics, but law. You have a certain lifestyle, and or a way of living out your day. For example, you're charitable, and you say give money to the poor. Or let's say someone hurts you, and you're very forgiving, and you believe in turning the other cheek.
Right.
And that's what you do. Now, if you were going to take your way of living and turn it into law, you can't say, all right, if this guy attacks you, you have to turn the other cheek.
I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That can't be a law.
The strictures, even the the Christian call, for example, the Beatitudes that Christ gave us. Okay, you've got the 10 Commandments. You can turn those into law.
Yeah, thou shalt not kill. No, okay,
right,
yeah, let's
example.
not kill.
But blessed are the meek, right, or and so forth, or like you said, turn the other cheek. If a man presses you to walk a mile, walk two with him. That a lot of those things don't make for very good laws, exactly.
And they weren't meant to, because
right.
And Jesus even clarified that he was not changing the law; he was trying to change people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And the law says an eye for an eye, but I say this. That doesn't mean they would change the law to force people to turn the other cheek every time they're attacked. It was more, this is how you behave, and this is how you handle these personal matters.
Right. And in fact, a lot of people don't realize they hear or read that particular clip of Jesus, referring to the Old Testament strictures of an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth, whatever, and they imagine that, he's drawing a distinction and saying, see, in the Old Testament, it was that under the law, punishment, justice, the avenge of an injury had to be harsh. But I'm telling you, instead, turn the other cheek. It actually isn't like that at all. Even the Old Testament was intended as a limit on vengeance.
Right.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If the guy,
you can't kill him for
if the guy knocks
you.
Exactly. If he knocks your fence down in your front yard, you can't go burn his house down.
Yeah.
It's so, and that was, and the law was actually, would have been used in terms of restorative justice. Somebody did something. Okay, well, now we'll bring it into court. Okay, you did, cause some kind of injury. You've got to somehow restore that, but it has to be proportional. We have to keep a limit on it. It can't just be this avenging rage that we let you live out.
Yeah.
So Jesus was saying, okay, yeah, that there's limits on this, but what I'm telling you is that if you truly want to be a child of God, personally, you have to go further than that. Turn the other cheek,
And I think that applies to immigration. Look, if there were an illegal alien living next door to me, say a Mexican who was up here with his family, yeah, I would probably do just about anything to help them stay in the country. Even say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll put down on paper that I'm employing you part-time, and that's why you need to be here, and that'll help you stay in the country.
If it would help, I don't know.
If it would help,
but I would employ you part-time. Hey, come, weed my garden once a week for an hour or something.
Yeah, and that'll somehow create the paperwork that's necessary to help you stay here. On the other hand, policy-wise, you can't take that kind of attitude that you would have for a person and turn it into a law. It just doesn't work. And I've heard I've heard people say, well, that, open borders is kind of like having an open house. And I would go even further than that. For a politician or a lawmaker to open our borders completely, that would be unfair to us the way it would be unfair to my children to allow thieves and murderers to come into my house anytime they wanted, or at least not check these people out and put some kind of restrictions on it. And it would be, to me, and when the bishops talk about this, I kind of give them a lot of leeway. I mean, they have to be bishops; they're not lawmakers.
Right.
And their understanding of it has to be this way, I think. And it has to be different than the way a politician would look at it.
Yeah, possibly, but I'm not so sure. I would say that that by the time you're a bishop, your understanding of moral theology and of Christian anthropology and society and law and so forth, you should have enough of an understanding of those kinds of things that as a bishop you understand and can speak within this context of those distinctions that we're talking about. I would say that if you really can't think that way, then you probably don't really know enough to become a bishop. And I don't think that bishops are incapable of thinking that way. I think that, I don't know exactly what goes on in their heads when they draft some of these statements that sounds like they just don't want the law to be enforced, or like they have no real understanding of the nature of the law and how it works and how human society works around it. But I hold them to a standard that they really should have understandings about these things, especially if they're going to inject themselves into that conversation on the level where people are using their statements in order to support political candidates who make these policies.
Yeah, you're right. But, when you have, for example, I think the Catholic, the American bishops are talking about, can't remember what it was about. It had something to do with the refugees. And we were they were trying to get the ability to get more refugees into America.
Right.
This is during Trump's campaign, and I can't remember what it was about, but I could kind of see it, and I could understand it. At the same time, I did not believe the Congress should allow for more refugees. I can see the bishops fighting for more refugees. I can see the Congress refusing them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that there may be some things that the bishops have to inveigh on the behalf of certain ideas that within the real, I guess, the reality of the political situations.
Yeah, even
Congress still has to not go down that path.
Right. Even if American bishops have to break the law and sneak refugees in, I would still find that excusable. In my head, I would. I don't know if there would be any kind of sin there or not, but in my head, that's fine. The same way bishops during the Holocaust hid Jews.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that situation, because we're talking about a case where we're saying the law, in the American case, the law is correct and appropriate as policy.
Yeah.
But there are circumstances where, even though the policy is a good one, the bishops are going to break the law for the sake of particular individuals in specific circumstances. With the Jews, we're not dealing with the same thing, because the policy itself was bad. I mean, and so you got to be careful about that, because they're.
Okay, well then let's talk. Okay,
but I see what you're saying.
After World War II, there were Catholic bishops helping war criminals and their families escape the wrath of the Russians.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maybe that would be a better analogy.
Or think about people who, escape the wrath of Russians, or people who, I can't remember the circumstances, but there were people who were being forced to repatriate to countries they had fled, that now, instead of being under Nazi rule, we're under Russian rule.
Yeah.
Under communist rule. And they didn't want to go back there. So, would it be right for the American Congress to say, well, okay, you can just stay here? Yeah, I don't know. Not sure about that. But at the same time, if you have, direct contact with them, helping them is a different kind of a question.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point, though. We can even perhaps accept the case, or accept the reality that the correct policies in law are not necessarily always capable of serving exact justice in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so in those cases where the specific justice is not served by the law itself, what does Christian moral theology say about violating the law in the service of that specific justice? That's a good point. If there's a case there, then it really undermines this idea that because we have this idea, like in the case of immigration, okay, yeah, we should help people, we should help those who are less fortunate, those who are in hard situations, whatever. That doesn't mean that you have to turn that into a law that says anybody can come into the country.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, you were talking about the Nazi versus Russian rulers in places like Poland.
Right, exactly.
So, Vicky, when she was working at Mercy Hospital, this old man came in. He was a Polish Jew who had first been imprisoned by the Nazis and was finally somehow escaped it, but he was in a Nazi concentration camp, and and he was there when the Nazis fled, and then there when the Russians came in, and he was also in a Russian prison for a long time. He said the Russian prisons were almost as bad as the Nazi prisons, not quite though. But he lived through both of them, and I would have loved to have just sat and talked to him for a couple hours to hear the stories. Wow. But she had asked him if while he was at that, it wasn't a concentration camp. I'm sorry, I was wrong. He was a soldier in the Polish army at first, and he was a prisoner of war. Yeah.
POW. Okay.
So he was a POW in
a Nazi
camp, and then he had gone to prison in a Russian camp. But she had asked him, so when you were in this Nazi POW camp, did you have a still? Because you always see stills in the POW movies.
Right.
And he said, no, the only time I saw someone with a still is there were some American prisoners coming through, and they were staying in our camp for like a week or something before they moved them to another camp. They had a still, a bunch of American Marines.
They got together and put a still together.
They had a still. He said
just the Americans.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
That's funny.
So I guess, I think the only definite thing we can say when voting is that you have to vote pro-life. It's just, you can't call yourself a Catholic and vote pro-death. It's just one of those things.
Any way around that.
After the pro-life issue, I guess you pray about it and do what your conscience says. I lean way more towards the conservative side, but my conservative friends would call me a liberal, and they do call me a liberal because of my thoughts on certain things that I think government should be involved in, that they think government should not be involved in. But so we skipped a week on current events.
Yeah, we did. What do you have? You mentioned something.
I got so much stuff
earlier that you said we would hear more about.
So let's see.
With
Trump
regards to the gay marriage thing.
Yeah, Trump's going to define gender via Health and Human Services civil rights law.
Oh, okay.
And it's going to be whatever genitals you have at birth.
That's your gender?
That's your gender, period. It's possible that could change with an operation, but without the operation, this is your gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not all these other things.
It's one of those things too that since it's a policy within a executive organization, Health and Human Services, it's one of those things that the next president could undo and change. Just like Title X funding of abortion went back and forth with
Right.
presidents. But yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Hopefully it puts to rest some of the crazy stuff that's going on with the gender. It's just, everybody knows it doesn't make sense, and for some reason politicians are afraid to say, well, that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's what we're dealing with, and Trump's the guy who's going to stand up and say, all right, this doesn't make sense. We're just going to do it this way from now on. But let's see. And other thing, that Jamal Khashoggi. Have you been following that?
No.
All right.
Who's Jamal?
He's they're calling him a journalist. He's not really a journalist. He's just written a few columns for the Washington Post, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, he criticized the Saudi government, and the Saudi Arabians had him killed, and now everybody's making. I personally,
seriously?
Yeah. In my mind, no, you didn't know about that? How could you don't watch the news or anything, do you?
I don't watch the news.
Okay.
No,
in my brain, I just think, who cares? I mean, it's another. These people are having each other killed all the time. I don't know why they're making a big deal of this one, but I mean, not that I want them to be killed. I just there's so many other things that we could focus on with that government, but that's the one they're choosing to go after. And in my head, it just doesn't matter.
So wait, I thought you said he was a journalist for one of the American papers, though?
He had written a few columns for, I think, the Washington Post.
Okay,
but he's not even an American.
He wasn't an American.
No, he's not an American.
Okay.
If he was an American citizen, Trump would be on that.
Well, yeah, that's what was confusing me. Okay,
right.
So he's a journalist in Saudi Arabia who was critical of the government, and they had him killed.
Yeah, in Turkey.
Oh, in Turkey. Okay.
Well, he was in Saudi Arabia. He did his little piece about the Saudi Arabians, and then he went to Turkey, and I think he was in a embassy there, or I can't remember where he was, but he was in Turkey, and the Saudi Arabians, like 15 of them, had him killed. That's what we think happened. Nobody has proof of it, but it's a reason to criticize Trump and say you should not have a relationship with these Saudi Arabians.
Oh, I see what
So that's, but again, to me it's a non-issue, but everybody's talking about it.
Lots of reasons, I think, to be critical of the Saudi Arabians. Just like there's lots of reasons to be critical of the Chinese and
right.
But
if you're going to pick on that one, whatever, I guess. We also got this caravan of immigrants coming. What are they, like 10,000 strong now?
Caravan of immigrants? What's that?
Boy,
is that like a march on? I have been under a shell. Well,
Do you have a TV or a radio or something?
Well, I have my computer. I should load up Fox News once in a while or something. But I've just been worn out with stuff. Last week we traveled to Georgia to help out my son and his family that were displaced by Hurricane Michael, and I tell you that base was leveled.
You went down there? It was.
I didn't go down there. I saw pictures that he brought. People aren't allowed back on. I mean, they were letting soldiers back on for short periods of time to try to collect stuff, and there are some of the houses. The base houses aren't even standing. Some of the base structures and buildings aren't standing anymore. I mean, it was
that bad,
wiped out. It was that bad, yeah. And the whole Panama City, Mexico Beach, and all of it. Mm-hmm. So,
wow. Okay, well, there's a caravan of supposed immigrants from Honduras and some of those other countries. Mm-hmm. They forced their way into Mexico and are slowly headed towards the U.S. And this thing was organized by Democrats, and I think a lot of it was paid for by Venezuela. And Trump is saying that, I mean, if they get this far, we're going to have to call out the military. We can't let them in.
Yeah, we can't just I mean, think of all the drug mules and human
insane.
traffickers that could be, hiding and lurking among those people.
And from what I hear, the
can't let
vast
them in.
majority of them are young males.
Uh-huh.
And
So
I think
even more
it'd be
so
nuts to let them in.
tends that way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's going on. Now,
so is this actually like endorsed by certain specific Democrats?
Democrats kind of acted like they were going to be behind it, but suddenly I think they're seeing the polls where Americans are like, what the hell? And
yeah, exactly.
So they're backing off and, Now, this is interesting. BepiColombo launched. It's going to go to Mercury, and it's going to I can't think of the word when it goes around a planet. Orbit. It's going to orbit
the planet, right.
Mercury,
mm-hmm.
and one of the things they're doing is verifying Einstein's theory of relativity, general relativity.
Which part of it? I mean, there have been a lot of predictions he made that they've slowly over the years been testing and verifying very subtle effects of it. And so far, there's not a single thing he predicted that his relativity math has predicted that they have tested and not confirmed.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just read that's one of the things it's going to do.
I'll have to read into that.
They're also going to, they're going to be taking measurements around Mercury. I mean, I'm surprised they could make something that would be able to orbit Mercury. I would think it would just burn up. Hot? Yeah, I would think so, but maybe not.
Yeah, Mercury doesn't burn up.
Yeah, but I'll bet I would have thought that that's like just a big ball of molten rock.
Well, they say that the surface of Venus is actually hotter than the surface of Mercury.
Oh, yeah, because of the atmosphere in Venus. Yeah.
So it must not be like completely molten, like just this ball of lava or something like that.
That's what I picture Mercury.
That would be a pretty cool planet, though.
Yeah. Okay, so also in Mars, they've decided that the water in Mars contains more oxygen than they originally thought. And again, it's more likely that it did support life. I don't know why. They keep changing on this.
Mm-hmm.
One time there was no water. Now they find traces of water, maybe. Now they find actual water. And now the water's got oxygen. They're trying to work their way towards there's microbes on Mars, but I don't think they're ever going to get there. Until we can go there and actually look at it.
Right. Well, I don't think they'll get there when we do get there and actually look at it.
Yeah.
We should do another podcast sometime about, about the processes, the biological processes that make up what we call life.
Right.
And how, unlikely it is for that to just,
to
how
happen.
impossible it is for it to just sort of happen on its own.
Right. Well, I look out there and I look at all these planets and I think, is there a reason for them to be there other than just the beauty of the planets? Especially when there's a lot of it that we can't see without not just a telescope, but without a orbiting
protracted,
telescope.
Extended. Think of it this way.
It has to be more than just the beauty of the universe itself. I keep thinking he probably made some life on these other planets that maybe we'll one day be able to go to visit.
Could be. Or maybe we'll just bring life to some of these other planets.
That too.
Who knows?
But I think in long terms, and I don't believe the Earth is going to end as soon as a lot of Christians seem to think it's going to end. And I look forward to someday. Well, it's going to happen after I'm dead, but I picture heaven is going to be a place where we're going to be able to go visit the other planets and look at them and see them, and who knows. Okay, so
well, here's let me throw that out there though, because that's people have kind of used that before. Oh yeah, the whole cosmos. What could it all be for if there's not other life out there? Well, think about this. First of all, even if there's the whole cosmos except for Earth is sterile, that really is it's okay. I mean, from a Christian point of view, that shouldn't be something that bothers us, or that is that we feel any kind of incredulity towards, because we know already that because a single human soul is eternal, that sempiternal would be the more correct word, but because we have an eternal existence, once this life is over, once this universe is over, we get to keep existing, we get to keep being. Therefore, a single human soul is more significant than the entire cosmos throughout all of time. And so it's not as though it's not like it's harder to make the rest of the universe than it was for God to make Earth, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, there's so much of that, there has to be a purpose, or it was so hard to make that, there has to be a purpose. But think about this. Okay, God, created the universe. There's order to it, but there's also it's not uniform. There's order without uniformity in it, okay? Which is part of where the beauty comes from. But all of those, the full extent of all those galaxies and other stars and nebula and everything that we've been able to observe so far, and we don't know what else we might be able to observe, but God certainly knew within the entire history of human development before the end of the world, which, he knows when that's going to be. He knows how far we're going to get, if not in our travels, at least in our observations. Well, it makes sense that he would have made a universe well big enough to contain all of our observations. He wouldn't want us to observe the edge, so to speak. I don't know what that would really even mean or look like or anything like that. So it makes sense to me that yes, even though some of these things we really can only observe either indirectly or through protracted, focused orbiting telescopes on a certain part of the sky or whatever, nonetheless, those things are there to support our ability to see them.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that theory.
I'm okay with it too. What I get astounded... Okay, so at one time we thought, wow, these other planets, we've got 9 other planets. Each one is so different from the next one.
Yeah.
And so we sent telescopes out to look at them. And then we also found out that not just the planets, but each moon around these planets are different from the next one. Well, not each one, but we've got some that have volcanoes. We have some made of ice, right next to each other. And it's the variety that I keep thinking. I assume that it's going to be like that as we go further and further out. As we study more and more planets, or are able to,
more and more,
we're going to keep finding this variety.
It makes sense,
and it's part of God's beauty. And I just, you know what? It's more of hope than anything else that we're going to get to a place where we can go to a whole new planet and say, "Let's populate this place."
Yeah.
But I guess we won't know that until we're dead.
We'll see.
Okay, the MAGA Bomber.
MAGA
Do you
Bomber?
know about the MAGA Bomber?
You're making that up.
The Make American Great Again Bomber.
Make America Great Again. MAGA Bomber.
Some Democrats started getting... Wow. Some Democrats started getting bombs in the mail.
Real bombs or just like...
Real bombs.
Imitation bombs?
They were real bombs. none of them have detonated and hurt people. Some of them were
Okay.
detonated on purpose because they couldn't find a safe
Place
way
to-
to,
right.
But I think there's been 11 or 12 altogether, and they caught the guy,
Oh, okay.
and he looks like kind of a nutso Republican, but there aren't that many nutso Republicans.
That's true.
I mean, that's not a Republican
It's
thing.
not a thing, right?
Violence is not on the Republican side. It's more.
It's
It's
more-
usually a Democrat thing.
Yeah, that's more of a leftist tool.
So all I can say is I'm a little suspicious of it.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see
That's all
how
I
it
can say.
how it turns out. You know what's interesting? A lot of the people that people associate with they'll call far right, including perhaps certain militia groups, certain say white supremacy groups, and
Yeah.
so forth. If you look at their political theories, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of government they actually think we should have, and
They're
what
on the
form
left.
of government. Exactly, they're all far left.
They're almost always on the left. The KKK
And yet-
was a big
Yeah.
leftist.
That's right.
Group.
That's right.
It's insane. But
I I don't get how
Obviously-
people get away with the mischaracterization.
yeah, that always bugged me because people say alt-right and far-right and right-wing, and I'm like, well, that's not right. Those people aren't on the right. They don't believe in less government.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh well. Also, they're building a Titanic 2.
Seriously, who's
They're going to
doing
make
it?
the
do you have-
exact replica. I don't remember who's doing
What
it.
shipping company? Oh,
I don't remember
Well,
who's doing it, but they're actually gonna take the exact route that the Titanic took. Only they're gonna have more life
Is-
rafts.
is is that just asking for fate?
Yeah, I, you know,
Would you book if you had the money? Would you book a ticket on that cruise?
no, I wouldn't. I would.
I would be tempted to because I've always wanted to do a northern cruise like that. But
Yeah, I just it would be one.
talk
I mean,
about tempting fate.
wow. If that thing sank, I don't know. I mean, the thousands of people would die, and that'd be
Yeah,
tragic. But
yeah.
at
I
the same
mean, it's
time, okay. Well, they're doing it now. This morning, there's an active shooter in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tree of Life Synagogue got shot up.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I think last time I looked, 8 people were dead. But they have someone in. They have the suspect in. What do you call it?
Custody.
Custody. Yeah, I forget weird words like that. The other day I was doing a
That's
radio
okay.
interview. I could not remember the word identity because I said I had to hide the
Oh,
identities of people. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't think of it.
Right. Right.
And wow,
That's
that
funny.
was
Well, you
rough.
know what I do? Sometimes I just like without even knowing it, I'll substitute the wrong word,
Yeah.
one that doesn't even make sense, and you know, my wife will catch me on it.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Sometimes I'll do that, or sometimes I'll just stop in the middle and pretend I actually said it, but just leave that space blank and then go on and hope that everybody knows what I'm
They
talking
fill it in.
about. Yeah. Okay, I think that's there's some earthquakes in Canada, but that's it for current events.
All right. Well, good.
Well,
I think
hopefully
it's
we'll try to get together next week, and
yeah, that's
we're having a tough time getting together every week.
well, you know, one of my other fantasies is having my household so organized that all the kids are doing the stuff that they need to do during the week, and then I actually am able to do the stuff that I want to do on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just as much of the fantasy as you know, like turning into the Hulk or something.
Yeah. Do you watch Malcolm in the Middle?
I have seen a few episodes. To
Have
me,
you seen-
one of the. Go ahead.
Have you seen Hal's fantasies that he has sometimes?
No.
Those are the funniest.
Oh.
I love that show.
funniest one that I've seen, and I've only seen a few, was when he was like spitting nails angry with the kids, like they were afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up like locking him into the cellar with a
oh yeah.
but
the
it
man
turned
cave.
out that it was like the 70s like bachelor pad down there.
Yeah,
Like
he
a
had a
man
blast.
cave.
He kept sneaking out, and then he'd make a recording of him yelling at them, "I'm going to kill you."
Yeah, so they
That
would
was
keep
great.
him locked in there.
That show is hilarious. Okay, well, yeah, we'll get together next week, and we'll do one on where next week we're going to talk about receiving communion on the hand versus tongue, right?
Is it going to be a debate?
I think it is.
Oh.
I debate with Mom over this all the time.
Ah, okay.
So
Well,
get your
we'll
info
see.
ready.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for listening to a podcast about Catholic things, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, I have to say, think about what we said.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right. The elections are coming up, and there's
Get out there and vote.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.